So, I won one of the midweek Vanguard Zero tournaments in the Vanguard Zero tournaments Discord. And what deck did I use to do that? Pale Moon! So might as well take this opportunity to shamelessly clickbait as well as do a deck profile on the Pale Moon deck that got me through the entire 64-man tournament. So, the first card I will be taking a look at is the main boss monster Golden Beast Tamer. Firstly, she has Restraint, with Restraint being released after Soul Blasting 2 cards. Next, on place, she can call a Chimera from Soul to Rearguard. Just a big plus. And lastly, she gives the front row Rearguards 3k. The reason she is incredibly strong is because the 3k boost to your front row allows you to hit decent numbers. You have 7k boosters and usually 10k attackers, so your columns will be hitting past the defensive for 10k bases. But most important thing the 3k boost does is allowing your combo pieces to hit the Vanguard unboosted, like your Nightmare Door Alices and your Mirror Demons. They are 10k and 8k respectively, so with the 3k boost, they will be able to hit even an 11k Vanguard, and after the attack hits, if you have a booster behind in the back row, you can call another attacker to the front row and deal another damage, or push a PG from your opponent's hand, which is incredibly strong. So she does deserve a drawback, which will be her restraint cost. It is pretty annoying and definitely sucks since the restraint is both Vanguard and Rearguard, meaning unless you're willing to waste a lot of resources, she's essentially a dead card in hand if you have more than 2 copies of her. That is one reason why I actually prefer playing just 3 copies of her, aside from over 4 copies of her. The other fact being I only have 3, so yeah. You have the Great Tree Searcher for a starter, so you can get away with playing just 3 copies of her, and drawing to multiple copies will mean you have more dead cards in hand, so you don't really want to do that. And the extra Great Tree slot gives you an extra non-restrained attacker and a backup right target, which in my decklist is Dark Illusionist Robert. Now, why Robert? Many people say he is incredibly trash, and to an extent, I agree. But the reason I play Robert is because he is the best backup right option in Pale Moon right now. Robert's second ability helps you set up Soul, as well as filter the deck a bit. This basically gives you a bit more leeway for when you can ride Golden Beast Tamer, since you have more Soul to blast away, or the chance of soul charging more important pieces like your Alices and your Trapezists. You never use his Mega Blast, so you can just ignore that. And he does get a 3k boost with 6 cards in Soul, meaning you can hit over an 11k base. But overall, the reason we play him is because we don't have many other options, with the others being Crimson. Since I don't play Crimson Beast Tamer in my decklist, I don't really want to waste spots and play Barking Manticore. And to me, Mishra's Hurricane eats too much counterblast to be able to warrant playing her. So yeah, those are our right targets down. So let's move on to the next Great Tree, which is our main multi-attack piece, Nightmare Doll Alice. Alice gets you an extra attack by calling out another unit from Soul after hitting. Preferably you want to call out a Grade 2. You can have a booster behind her, but when you attack, you only attack with her. When her attack hits, you call a card from your Soul back onto the circle she was on, and because you have a standing booster behind that unit, you can attack once again and hit over a normal damage check. This is especially useful for when your opponent has 2 interceptors, since you can deal 2 damage to your opponent despite the fact that he has 2 interceptors, 2 Grade 2s on field. So, incredibly strong. The one downside to this is that a defensive can screw up your plans pretty hard, unless you call a Dark Lord of Pale Moon. Dark Lord of Pale Moon is a very simple beat stick that, with the 3k boost from Golden Beast Tamer as well as his own skill, hits over a defensive trigger without you needing to check a trigger. So if your opponent hits a defensive, you can just call this guy instead of another Grade 2 10k or something like that. And it's a very simple and very effective skill. The trigger lineup, it's simply 9 draw, 4 heal. Draws help you get your pieces, and the fact that they are draws means that you don't have to be afraid of swinging with Vanguard last. You can just attack the rearguard with your Vanguard instead of having to always swing Vanguard with Vanguard. And your heal is Dark Lord of Pale Moon because he is the least important Grade 3 to see in the course of the game. So that's it for the Grade 3s. Let's move on to our Grade 2s. We firstly have 4 Barking Cerberus, the 10k vanilla. We play him because he's our one and only Chimera, meaning he is the only card that we can call out of Soul with Golden Beast Tamer's skill. This means he is our main right target for grade 2, which isn't bad as 10k is both good offensively and defensively. The 10k base definitely helps in the Rises matchup, as if you have him as an interceptor, your opponent either has to commit one of their 9 or 8k or even 7k grade 2s as well as a booster, or your opponent has to forego defense and call a grade 3 to hit that 10k base. So yeah, very useful. Next card on the list is for Nitro Juggler. Nitro Juggler is incredibly important as it gives you basically Soul Blast fodder for Golden Beast Tamer, and the extra soul can net you pieces as well. A very simple skill but incredibly important. You want to see at least one of him before getting to grade 3, as it gives one more soul. Then you have another soul with the starter, giving you 2 Soul Blast fodder for Golden Beast Tamer. You want this as Soul Blast works differently from the actual trading card game, where you can Soul Blast when you Soul Blast, you blast away the 2 cards at the bottom of your soul instead of being able to choose. This means in order to keep pieces in your soul, you need to have at least 2 other cards below the piece in order to avoid snapping it away with Golden Beast Tamer. Usually you only need 2 soul in. You need to soul in 2 cards to keep your main grade 1 right target, as well as combo piece Purple Trapezist in soul. So that's why we play 4 copies of him. In fact, that soul is so important that I play 3 Hungry Clown, just to avoid any chance of soul blasting away important pieces. Now, why do I play Hungry Clown over something like Jumping Jill or Crimson Beast Tamer? Well, the reason is simply the soul is too important, and playing those cards over Hungry Clown can make the difference between being able to release Restraint and releasing Restraint but snapping away your important pieces in soul. Plus, playing those cards means you want to keep them in soul, meaning you can't use them as Soul Blast fodder. So yeah, that's the reason I play Hungry Clown over those 2 cards which are in most lists. Our final grade 2 spots belong to Mirror Demon, who is basically a backup Alice. You don't want to play more copies as he is just an 8k base, which sucks. So 2 copies is enough to push the number of multi-attack pieces you have from 4 to 6. And this deck lives or dies depending on whether it can see its multi-attack pieces. So without them, the deck is pretty vanilla, so you still want to play a few copies of him. Now let's finally move on to our grade 1 lineup. Of course, we have 4 PGs because they are incredibly good. Anyways, the first grade 1 to talk about is our main right target and the most important card to keep in soul, Purple Trapezist. You might be wondering, why is she our main right target? She's only a 6k base, which leaves you vulnerable for early rush. And well, the simple reason is because Pale Moon currently has no form of selective soul charging. They will get one in the form of Dancing Princess of the Night Sky in the next support set for Pale Moon, but for now there is none, so the easiest way of having her in soul is simply by riding her for grade 1. She is such an important combo piece, so much so that it outweighs the cons of having a 6k base Vanguard. She also helps in situations where your Alice doesn't have a booster behind her, so what you can do is use Alice, call a Trapezist from soul, then soul in another card from Rearguard Circle, and call another card for an attack with a booster, since Trapezist is called standing. The fact that her skill doesn't require her to have been called from soul also means that if you have more copies of her in hand, you can toolbox important cards that you have soul charged into soul with, whether it be interceptors or even your multi-attack engine like Alice and Mirror Demon. So yeah, that is why we play 4 copies of Purple Trapezist. Next, we have 3 Skull Juggler. The reason we play him is the same reason we play Nitro Juggler. Getting the soul is important, and he is a 7k booster, so you can make decent columns on turn 3 and even on turn 2 for a grade 2 rush. Lastly, we have our final multi-attack piece, Midnight Bunny, played at 2. Again, this deck is incredibly reliant on multi-attack for its aggression and pressure. But Midnight Bunny does need to boost, so you won't have a standing booster after you call an attacker with Midnight Bunny. So this is another reason why we play Purple Trapezist, and another reason why she's important, as you basically call her with Midnight Bunny instead of some other attacker to the same back row circle, then you soul in the attacker in the same column, and call another attacker, and bam! You have another column that can hit over a normal damage without having to have Alice or Mirror Demon. So yeah, that's the deck. Now let's talk about the matchups in the current set 2, set 3 meta. So I'm gonna start with the decks I faced in the Cardfight Vanguard Zero midweek showdown tournament hosted in the Vanguard Zero tournament's Discord. The first deck I faced is D Police, and overall it's a good matchup. D Police is basically a weaker version of Risers, so as long as you have a few PGs in hand, you can easily outpressure and outlast your opponent and take the win. Next, we have the big boogeyman of Zero right now, Perfect Risers. It's a bad matchup, but still winnable. The key to winning this is not giving your opponent the second counterblast, forcing your opponent to commit more cards from hand to hit the natural crit. Of course, you also have to be fairly lucky drawing your PGs, but if you can stick to this, you will be able to outlast and win your opponents. This is how I won all my matches against Perfect Riser, and you preferably want to start second so you can draw into more pieces. I did lose. I got 2-1 to both Risers matchups, and the reason why I won 2 of the games, like 2 games in each round, was because I damage denied the Perfect Riser's Counterblast 2 skill to get the extra Battle Riser, which forced my opponent to commit more cards from hand, which then later on forced my opponent to swing at an Interceptor with his Vanguard, which you don't want to do with Perfect Riser unless you really have nothing on field. So yeah, incredibly important to damage deny your Riser's opponent if you're facing against him. So let's talk about another tough matchup, and this is arguably the toughest one, Tsukuyomi. This matchup is incredibly bad as your opponent can easily outlast you with all the plussing they do, and you don't have enough pressure to really do much against them. The only reason I managed to win my 2 rounds against the Tsukuyomi players in the tournament was an incredibly healthy dose of luck. My opponent in round 3 didn't have a PG in hand despite filtering through his deck and giving me my second game, so I got 2-1. And my semi-final opponent bricked really hard for the third round, so I just won that round and went on to finals. So yeah, had to get lucky on those 2 rounds against Tsukuyomi, which is a very bad matchup for Pale Moon. The clan I faced in finals is Spike Brothers, and I will talk about that matchup along with the Pale Moon mirror match together as they are fairly similar. Your opponent is on a 10k base most of the time, so defensives aren't an issue, and thus as long as you are able to draw your combo pieces, draw your multi-attack engines, you should have a relatively easy time winning in these matchups. I don't really have much more to say about that. So the last matchup I will highlight will be the Kagero matchup, which in truth I don't have much experience with, but from a surface level perspective, it's pretty bad, as Kagero can take out your interceptors incredibly easily and Pale Moon can't damage deny, so they have have access to front row destruction almost all the time. Plus, your grade 3s are 10k bases, leaving you incredibly susceptible to a blockade. So you're pretty much taking the L, but you can pull off multi-attacks easily, so you can try to out-aggro your opponent and hopefully win. However, as I said, don't take this matchup too seriously from my perspective, as I don't have much experience with it. So yeah. Overall, Pale Moon is an incredibly nice deck, and I personally find it really fun. It multi-attacks, hitting for decent numbers, and 2-boxing their cards in soul. It is fairly expensive though. I feel you need a minimum of 3 Trapezes, 3 Alice, and 3 Golden Beast Tamer, but Alice will be a ranked reward soon, so you can get your copies fairly easily. And well, that's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, share this, and even subscribe. I would like to thank the people who hosted the tournament as well. It was incredibly fun, albeit stressful and tiring since it lasted until 2 AM for me. But I certainly don't regret participating and look forward to future tournaments. Hopefully I can do well in those tournaments too. So anyways, thank you all for watching and see ya.